What's up guys, this is Kincaid, and in case you missed it, I recently traded a 1994 Yamaha YZ80 for a running 2005 Suzuki RM125. Now I did get the bike with a bill of sale, but not a title. This is actually pretty common with all of the bikes I buy in Montana. With older bikes, the titles tend to be lost quite often. Now in Montana, if the bike does not have a title, you can apply for a new title. To do that, they have a list of approved websites that you can pay to run the VIN through to check it. So I did that, and as it turns out, there was a stolen report for this bike back in Utah sometime in 2020. I called my local police department, which is also one of the steps in getting a title. You have to have a local police officer come visually inspect the bike and the VIN, so I called him, told him the full story. He called the state of Utah as well as checked a 50-state database, and there were no active stolen reports for this bike, which means that even if the bike was stolen at one point in time, it was resolved. So he signed off on the paperwork that I needed, and I submitted all of the documents to get a title, which should take 1 to 2 months. So once I knew I was clear to work on the bike, I started doing some testing on it to see what it might need, and it had a really bad bog if you open the throttle quickly. The guy who traded the bike to me said he just had the cylinder replated by LA Sleeve and put a new piston in it, but I was a little bit skeptical based on how the bike was running. So I went ahead and washed it up and then started tearing it down. When I pulled the header pipe, I could see the open ends of the piston ring and one side was bent, which I knew was not a good sign, so I proceeded to pull the cylinder off. I probably should have realized right away when I saw which way the piston ring was facing what had happened, but it took me until I got the cylinder off to realize that the piston was installed backwards. I had heard of this happening before, but never seen one of these with my own eyes, so it was pretty crazy to pull that cylinder and see the fact that that arrow was pointing backwards, but I got to work on disassembling that cylinder to see what sort of damage we were looking at. It became pretty apparent that the piston ring had caught on the exhaust port, but that was the only area of damage. And while it was pretty deep, I thought that just maybe this one could get away with a honing rather than another full replate, which really would just be a shame after the cylinder had already been freshly replated. But the line was above and below the exhaust port, mostly above, and a very, very small spot showing below the exhaust port. So I took the cylinder to my buddy Joe over at Different Stroke Motorsports, and he did some honing for me. I've actually never honed a cylinder and don't have the tool, but he ran me through it and it's not too complicated of a process. So after honing, that line is still visible, but it's actually pretty smooth. You don't really catch your nail on it, and I think it's going to be safe to run. The fact that the bike was running like this before with the ring facing the wrong way and it never seized leads me to think that with the piston in the correct orientation, maybe I will lose a couple horsepower by having that little groove there and allows a little blow by past the ring, but I'm not too concerned about it seizing. Of course, only time will tell if this is the right decision, but it saved me a couple months from sending the cylinder off to get replated and of course the cost of that. I got the power valve all reassembled and the cylinder ready to go, so at this point I am just waiting for a new piston in the mail. From there I decided to make some more progress on the rest of the bike. Drain the oil, which actually looked pretty clean, which is always good news. It's pretty terrifying if you see some metal shavings pouring out. I plan on doing a full carb rebuild, so I pulled the entire subframe and inspected the air boot, which unfortunately does have some dirt in it. And this is the second bike I've worked on in a row that was missing the proper wing nut bolt for the airbox. So I ordered one of those. I don't know what it is with people losing those. But yeah, lots of dirt in the air boot, so I fully took the airbox all the way apart. I tried to keep it together, but realized I could not get to all the tight dirt crevices in that boot, so I ended up pulling the boot out of the airbox, giving it a full-on scrub down, got everything nice and clean so that I don't have to worry about this engine sucking dirt when it is rebuilt with a fresh top end, so that will be nice peace of mind. You may have noticed early on in this video that the engine is missing a crankcase bolt, and I also noticed that the reed bolts were way too long, so Fastmetric sent over a kit of engine hardware. I love their kits, they make it super easy, and they also make the bike look way better with fresh bolts. So I went through and just decided to replace all of the engine hardware that's accessible without fully pulling the motor, which is just about every bolt. So that gave me a little bit of peace of mind that all of the bolts were there, the correct bolts were there, and of course it looks a little better. I hit the clutch and ignition covers with Pryme MX cleaning wheels to get that beautiful mirror polished finish. From there, I pulled the piston off of the rod and definitely confirmed that the piston is not usable. It sustained some damage where that ring bent. I went ahead and put it on a shelf in my kitchen, which is quickly overflowing with pistons. The clutch lever was broken, and it also had a really weird pull to it where it wouldn't go all the way to the bar, so I figured I would start with replacing the clutch cable. I chose to use a Pro X clutch cable for the replacement. They make awesome aftermarket parts for these bikes. I then installed the new clutch lever as well as adjusted the tension, and while I kept fiddling with it, the pull was still super weird. Sometimes it would pull normal, sometimes it seemed like it changed the tension. This was when I finally realized that the lever and the cable could not be the culprits in this, so I had to pull the flywheel and stator to take a look at the clutch push shaft. All right, so I found the culprit for why the clutch was pulling weird. So I knew from the 03 where about this was supposed to sit in the case here, and it was pulling too far up, so when you pulled the lever it only moved about this far, and you couldn't even pull the lever to the bar because this was bottoming it out on this. So I just pulled this shaft that pushes the clutch rod, and you can see it's pretty chewed up right here. It's got maybe a millimeter or two gouge out of it, which would totally explain it getting pulled a little too much initially by clutch tension and then only having that much to go versus having that much to go. So I think I'm gonna need to order one of these. So I was stoked to have figured that out and submitted an order for that part, and I'd be really surprised if that does not fix the issue. I did some cleaning and scrubbing of splooge from a leaky exhaust joint, and then I figured it was time to have a go at this exhaust pipe, which wasn't in horrible shape, but definitely could look a little bit better. So I'm gonna be doing a little experiment in this video. I just torched 2 big dents out of this stock header for the RM125 using the heat and expansion method. This pipe is definitely looking kind of nasty, and I was curious what would happen if I use Pryme wheels on a stock pipe like this. And I think we might actually be able to get a pretty beautiful finish. So this was actually with the fine wheel. I'm going to switch to my coarse Pryme wheel, and I think this pipe could end up looking pretty sweet. I apologize, I'm missing a shirt. It's just too hot in here. If you want to buy a set of these, they will change your life in the garage. If you don't have them, you don't know what you're missing out on, but you will never go back. Pryme MX, I've got a referral link in the description. So I hit the pipe with my Pryme wheels and got all of that stock paint pretty much fully stripped off, and truthfully got the pipe looking pretty good. You can still see where those dents were. Obviously I didn't get them 100% out, but with about an hour of effort on this pipe, I actually think it turned out pretty good and is gonna look really nice on the bike. No, it doesn't look brand new, but I think it looks a lot better than it did, and it's a pretty unique look to have this fully stripped OEM pipe. The next task at hand while I await some engine components and other parts for the bike was to get this old seat cover replaced with a freshie from DeCal Works. I always love using DeCal Works seat covers. They're super comfortable, and with the ribs, they're super grippy and actually perform really well. The trusty Harbor Freight air stapler has never let me down so far, gets the job done pretty easy, so this seat cover install actually went pretty smoothly. So that is the progress on the 05 so far. I've got a freshie front tire from Shinko waiting to be installed, and I'm actually getting a Rabic Honda tire changer on Thursday, so I'm really excited to test that out and be looking out for a video on that. So guys, that is the current progress on the 2005 Suzuki RM125. You might also notice I've got a new setup here in the garage. I've spent the last 2 weeks doing a complete remodel of this. It's been a ton of work, but I can't wait to show you guys the whole transformation. It's not completely done yet, but I am loving the new setup. I filmed the entire process, so I've got a before and after full transformation of how I built out this garage coming soon. Be sure to check me out on TikTok and Instagram at Kincaid Pavich. Also, let me know what you think of the format of this video where I'm talking over the footage compared to the episodes of the 03 RM125 build where I kind of talk about it and then show the footage over music and things like that. It's just a little bit different format, so just let me know how you guys like it. That's it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video.